Hello, welcome to the Shaman's Cave. I'm Renee Baribeau, the practical shaman.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra Ingerman, and welcome to the Shaman's Cave. So, today we have a really interesting show, and I will start it off. And I know Renee has so much brilliance to add to what I'm sharing. And so, one of the things Renee and I keep trying to share with everybody is that shamanism is way beyond techniques. um, Shamanism is a way of life. It's not techniques. And that's a place where I really feel the modern culture, where we are in our culture, has really gone off track because everything is, if you look at Facebook, what's a technique for? What's a technique for? What's a technique for? And actually, techniques have never healed one person on the planet. So, so I'd like to just plant a seed about taking your work to a deeper level. And most of you who are listening have heard me share these two stories before, and they're in my books. But I wanted to start this off because they make a really clear statement that whoever is listening has to understand what we're talking about today. So, one time I was teaching in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It was in the 1990s. I was teaching a soul retrieval workshop. And at my soul retrieval trainings, we do a big fire ceremony to release the obstacles for us of creating the life that we want. What's the core attitude that you're holding that is blocking you from being from living out your greatest dream in life? We all have that. We all have a core issue. So Santa Fe was in one of its biggest droughts. I've lived here for over 40 years, and this was probably one of the biggest droughts that we had. And so, although I was doing an indoor fire ceremony, there was no spark arrestor. And so, I wasn't sure if it was safe to do it. So, when I woke up in the morning, I said to the spirits, if you have rain fall on my head for 5 seconds at 3 o'clock this afternoon, I will do the fire ceremony. If not, I will cancel it. So, exactly at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a few drops of rain fell on my head while I was walking back up to our group because we were going to start in a few minutes. And they knew I was going to say, fire ceremony, go, fire ceremony canceled. So, we did the fire ceremony. It was amazing. That's not what I want to talk about. A couple of years later, I get this email from this guy who's doing his thesis on weather. And somebody had told him about this story, and he wanted to really track down what happened. And so my sponsor and I were able to come up with exactly the day, the year, and the time and the location of where we were. And he investigated and researched old weather reports, and he found that one stray cloud came over Sunrise Springs over me at 3 o'clock at that time. Now, the second story is much shorter, but it has the same theme to it. So I was teaching soul retrieval in Tennessee during Hurricane Opal. And the second we were going to start the fire ceremony inside, we had a beautiful place to work outside, but I canceled it. We were in a hurricane. The second I was ready to start, calling in the spirits for the group, the hurricane stopped. We ran out, we did the ceremony. The second the last person put in their wood, the second I said, "The ceremony is over and we give thanks to the spirits," I gave a long thanks, the hurricane came back. So, what's the point of my story? The point of my story is that a year before my workshops, I start speaking to the helping ancestors of the land of where I'm teaching. You don't get those miracles that come just because you happen to be a good person, you're kind of a nice person, and you want to have a really great ceremony, and conditions are just not right. I spent a year talking to the helping ancestors, explaining who my group was that's coming, why we're coming, what we're doing for ourselves, our clients, and the planet. And these are just two examples I want to give when you do this kind of work. Compare it to all the Facebook posts of what's a technique for, what's the simplest way I can do, what can I do without any preparation or ever taking a workshop or learning. What Just use your common sense. What's gonna be the difference of your results if you're practicing shamanism on Facebook versus you're actually out talking to the helping spirits of the land, to everything in the sacred web of life, and actually, understanding the magic of shamanism and how if you drop into the magic, you can create anything.
Mm. Well, that's a really great reminder as I'm getting ready to head out the door and walk to the Cotswolds and teach in the UK. It's like I have no idea where I'm going or so maybe I'll just have a conversation a little bit later with the spirits of both the College of Psychic Studies and these inns that I'm going to visit. But you made me think. I This summer I moved into a new home and there's plenty of work to do on the inside and but all of the work, the bigger work that I started is on the outside because I know that every year at the solstice, I've had a big fire ceremony. And this new house didn't have a fire area. So I've had the gardeners over, making a whole fire pit. And then it's like, okay, well, the nice fire pit I have, that really nice iron fire pit, with, has a place to sit. And I'm looking out and the place to sit is like, well, no, we'd really like some bushes around. We don't want to be so exposed. So,
Mhm.
like, then I go and very thoughtfully landscape around it. And not that this year it'll be pretty new, but that to me it wasn't home until that area was anchored in the yard.
Yeah, creating sacred space.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much that comes out of doing that that we miss. We just miss because we try to go straight for the technique.
Mhm.
I was talking to a student of mine who, went over to another country, I don't wanna share the details. But, when she asked about shamanism in the West, what really came up was we don't do preparation work for our ceremonies, and we don't put our heart and soul into our ceremonies, and so, our ceremonies are sweet. They use the word "sweet," but,
Gently.
I don't think sweet and powerful are basically, go together. So it's something for people to think about, the preparation work that you do before you do the work, how much effort you put in, or if you just work looking, as everybody knows, the biggest complaint in the shamanic world is that everybody wants the magic, uh, the magic feather, that magic moment where you don't have to put in any work and a shaman just comes in and makes your life 100% perfect. It's been the biggest complaint of
Mm.
every student of shamanism for God knows how many years now,
Mhm.
and it still is.
Well, and sometimes that magic doesn't need the fire pit to happen. like
Mhm.
the cloud that rained down on your head. Yes, you called and asked for the sign, but like you said, it's like years and years of preparing yourself, years and years of having relationships with those spirits, years and years of, you know, being in right integrity with the work that you wanted to do in the world. And so it's just not enough to go out and clear the space once because you're
Mhm.
gonna have a group over, but it's like how you live, like, because the other room that's taken me the longest to get to in my new place is my studio space, which is where my books and my oracle decks are stored, and it really is this room where I may do groups eventually. And so to really think about, okay, what what kind of art should I put on the wall here? What spirits want to come in and be part of this building? And it's revealing itself to me in a really slow and really methodical way. And, for me, that's like I like to get the rooms organized and get myself situated. And it's not happening in this home. It's like, listen, this is home. We can unfold with you as you explore it. And I think that anyone who, does is a healer or does teaching or does this work have to understand that everything is relationship and everything is energy, and and it it directs the map. It directs the course. It's the compass, not the other way around.
Yeah, so I wonder what would happen if everybody on social media who keeps asking these questions so that they could bypass any learning or bypass any preparation. I wonder if people journeyed on this or went out into nature and reflected on their life and their work and the success that they're having with their work. Is there a way to deepen it so that you're just not reading, social media books and listening to audios, so you're just getting methods and techniques versus what's behind the methods and techniques?
Mhm,
Because in shamanism, the methods and techniques are only for show.
mhm.
That's it. They're only for show. So if you're just doing methods and techniques, you're a show person for yourself. So, but if you actually want to get results for yourself, I wonder what would happen if you journeyed and asked the question of how can you deepen your work with the spiritual world so that you can do appropriate preparation, you can do the deepest ceremonies possible, and you can do the deepest work that you can, and then you see much better results in your life coming from that.
It's interesting as you speak about that because it reminds me like I'm right deep in writing a book, right? And even then they're like, well, people are gonna want methods, like, how like what you said, they're gonna want the shtick. They're gonna want to know, you know, how to blow the fire out, with the rum in their mouths. But it's not it's really more for me about like how do you show up every day in your life?
Right.
How do you plan a dinner with your family? And if you're not planning a dinner with your family or your community, why not? Why aren't you bringing people together around a table or around a fire or around a book or around something? And I saw somebody's post on Facebook the other day and it was talking about, if you looked at other people's iPhones who had different, logarithms on the, what information that they're being fed. I said, yeah, imagine if you put that phone down
Right.
and had a dinner party with people and talked about, you know, whatever. I went to lunch last week with people who I'm sure if we talked politics, it would have blown right on up. But instead, we were talking about addicts and people that they loved and people, different things that are important to all of us when people are sick or not healthy or, their businesses or drinking water came up. I mean,
Right.
the things we could gather around are the things that, we've always gathered around as healers and shamanic practitioners is the community.
Right. Yeah, shamanism is about community. Shamans themselves, in many cultures, lived in isolation. Not all cultures, but in some cultures, they lived aside of the community doing their deep internal work so they could be the healer and the diviner of the community. But the magic of shamanism in different areas of the world is the community, is the preparing the meals together, is preparing for the ceremonies together, is feasting after the ceremonies are done. But all the hard work, the feast comes because of how much work they had to do to prepare. All the items they had to bring for the spirits, uh, creating whatever they needed if they were doing a fire ceremony, chopping wood, and asking the tree if they can use the wood from the tree for the fire. So much work went into the preparation and working together as a community so that the people could thrive. And we live in a culture where, due to social media, in some ways, we're more isolated than we've ever been.
Okay. When I used to go to the lodge every week, I kept like what you said, as a new person, I wanted them to tell me the magic. I wanted to learn the secrets. And
Right.
she's like, "Oh, just show up 3 hours early, Renee, next time." So I'd show up 3 hours early like I was instructed and, sit there and watch as the fire burned for 3 hours before everyone else arrived. And, 6 months, a year, 2 years later, I was shot and told, "Well, come 4 hours early, Renee." And they taught me how to build the fire. And
Mhm.
and it took a long, long time before I realized that that was the ceremony.
Right.
It wasn't getting on my hands and knees and crawling into the on the dirt, but all of it was the ceremony. And and once I understood that, it it changed everything.
Yeah, and that story, really shares the point that I'm trying to make really well, is that it's not the ceremony, it's what you put into the ceremony.
Mhm. And then and all the way through to removing the blankets and folding the blankets and putting the blankets back, and then sharing a meal with community. But before we did that, we always had to make the plate for the spirit first,
Right.
which had a little bit of everything that everyone had made. You went out and blessed it and put it at the base of a tree or out by the fire or somewhere so that the spirit could feast first.
Yeah. So in listening to Renee and listening to my stories and some of what we're sharing, um, it's not about judging yourself and it's not about comparing. That's not what we're talking about in any way. But with the challenges I think each person is experiencing today, as well as our collective, how deep are you willing to go with creating sacred space and preparation? Or are you looking for the magic bullet, the one time ceremony where somebody put it on and you didn't have to do a thing?
Mhm,
Or just showed up online and somebody sang a song? It's how much did you put in?
mhm.
How much energy did you put in? And for me, I literally start talking to the spirits of the land before I bring a group for months or a year before. Um, if I do, I and basically haven't really traveled for vacations. I just when I've traveled for teaching, I stayed for a bit for doing some sightseeing and hanging out with my community. But if I do go somewhere personally, I still do the same thing. I ask for permission to come to this country, to come to this state, to come to this city, and I share what's in my heart, and I ask to be welcomed and to have graceful and smooth experiences, and I do.
Well, I love that, and I'm gonna make sure that I do some of that today because I think that I've been so busy doing all of the other things that, I think that would be a really nice ad before I head out of the country.
Yeah, I feel, I just I love this earth so much, and I love all of life, and that includes the humans living on it. And there's so much suffering going on right now. Not all of it can be avoided, obviously, and we don't need to talk about that. But for those of us who are listening to the show, um, with the challenges everybody is facing right now, everybody's facing challenges. How do you move your life out of just doing a technique or a method? And how do you bring it into creating the energy field where the magic ends up happening? And so maybe spending a little bit more time in nature, holding that question, or if you know how to perform a shamanic journey, journeying to your helping spirits, or journeying to the helping spirits of your land and ask how you can work in partnership together to be able to have the life that you want and to be able to do the successful ceremonies that you want without just memorizing a technique or a ceremony. There's a very big difference in that.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've kinda covered that topic pretty well. I'd love to hear how you prepare, whether it's fasting or if it's, meditation or, I've done a lot of walking in preparation. It's interesting that I was thinking about that. I've done a lot of walking for my journey. And when I was out walking in the Nature's Conserve, I get to the other end of the Nature's Conserve. And this is kind of like your rain story a little bit. And there's the man who owns the Nature Conservatory on the other side. And we'd never met, never saw him, never knew a thing about him. And somehow we started to talk. And the Cotswolds was one of his very favorite places to travel.
Oh, how fun.
So the other day I had him make this little video for me, like for my people, like, what do you need to know? And sure enough, he's talking about the gators we're gonna need when we're tromping through streets.
Uh,
But it was just like that's how spirit shows up for me in my life when I'm out walking in the woods. That what are the chances that you're gonna meet somebody whose favorite place to walk over and over again is right where I'm going?
right. Yeah, the spirits bring magic. I'm doing, and we're going to talk about this on our next show. I'm doing a lot of deep cleaning in my life, but in my house, and I decided to get rid of some books that I don't feel so great about getting rid of, but I just feel it's time. And so there were 2 pieces of paper in one of the books, and I took out the papers just to see what was written on them. And one of them was a Mary Oliver poem that I'm actually not familiar with. I've never heard it before, but it spoke to everything happening in my life right now. So, there is magic, and we have amazing opportunities to step into it. But it's all about the heart that you bring to your work, the intention that you bring to your work, and how much you communicate with the spirits so that they are also part of your community too.
Mm, love that. Well, share some of your magical preparations and the magic that ensued after you really did a deep preparation. We'd love to hear about that. Come over to our Shaman's Cave Facebook page. And I turned down a lot of posts on that page because everyone's posting what the next thing they want you to go to and the next thing. I want to hear about your experiences.
Right.
That's what we'd love to hear about there, and I always know that Sandra even always responds when she sees a good post.
I always respond when there's a post that is actually written from your heart, not somebody else's heart, but yours. So, but we have a beautiful circle. And the reason why we're sharing all of this with you is not to judge, not to compare. it's really we have this beautiful circle who's seeking, and both Renee and I have been out there for a long time, and we do hold wisdom as elders, and we would love to share it with those of you who actually show from your heart that you would love to learn. But we
Mhm.
do love you, and we bless you, and we thank you for listening, and we thank you. I think everybody's doing the best they can right now. We're just planting seeds of how you could actually bring more positivity into your life right now.